Before we dive into tonight's tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more creepy stories that will keep you up at night. The Jeep rattled to a stop, its engine coughing like it was just as tired as the 5 friends spilling out of it. Dust kicked up around their boots, swirling in the dry Nevada air, 20 miles from that barbed wire line they all knew marked Area 51. It was March 2025, and the desert was alive with a weird kind of energy. Tourists had been flocking here ever since those declassified files dropped last year, promising secrets but delivering mostly hype. The sun hung low, painting the dunes in shades of orange and shadow, and the group's laughter broke the stillness like a crack of thunder. Jake was the first out, all 32 years of him etched with that ex-soldier grit, buzz cut sharp, scowl sharper. He gave the Jeep's rear tire a solid kick, the thud echoing off the flat expanse. "Waste of a damn weekend," he grumbled, loud enough for everyone to hear, though his eyes flicked to the horizon, restless. You'd never guess it from his tone, but the guy carried ghosts, PTSD from some deployment he never talked about, the kind that made silence his enemy. Lila hopped out next, all 28 years of her buzzing with that wild, untamed energy. Her curls bounced like they had a mind of their own as she clutched a stack of conspiracy books under one arm, dog-eared pages, neon sticky notes poking out. She flashed that grin of hers, fearless and a little too bright, the kind that made you wonder if she was chasing thrills or running from something. "Come on, Jake, lighten up," she teased, her voice carrying over the crunch of gravel under her sneakers. "This is history, man. We're practically stepping on it." The others piled out behind her, Sam, Tara, Marcus, stretching their legs, shaking off the 4-hour drive from Vegas. They started unloading gear, tents, coolers, a beat-up camping stove, all clattering onto the sand under a sky that felt too big, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. Sam hefted a duffel bag over his shoulder, his shy smile catching the last of the daylight. "Least it's not raining," he said, glancing at Lila a beat too long. Tara was already fiddling with her drone, her nervous fingers tweaking the controls. She lived for that thing, streaming every move to her 500 followers like they were her oxygen. The little machine whirred to life, its blades slicing the air with a high-pitched buzz as it lifted off, circling above them. Marcus cracked open a beer from the cooler, the hiss-pop cutting through the chatter, and called out, "To epic weekends and epic fights. Cheers!" The group laughed, even Jake, though his was more of a grunt. They set up camp in a loose circle, the Jeep parked at an angle like a makeshift wall against the emptiness. Tara's drone zipped higher, its tiny red light blinking against the fading sky. She squinted at her phone screen, narrating for the stream in that quick, jittery way of hers. "All right, fam, here we are. Nevada desert, 20 miles from the big A51. No aliens yet, but give it time." The feed flickered once, twice, then steadied, until it didn't. Sam was the first to notice, peering over her shoulder. Tara, what's that?" His voice had an edge, not quite alarmed but close. The screen showed them, 5 figures standing out in the dunes, maybe a quarter-mile off. Same clothes, same stances, just still, too still. Jake wandered over, wiping sweat off his forehead with the back of his hand. "Heat mirage," he said flatly, crossing his arms. "Desert plays tricks, seen it before." But Lila's eyes lit up, that gleam of hers kicking into overdrive. "No way that's a mirage," she shot back, already grabbing her flashlight from the pile of gear. "Come on, let's check it out." "Lila, seriously?" Sam called after her, but she was already moving, boots kicking up little puffs of sand. Tara hesitated, glancing at her phone. The stream chat was blowing up. "Who's that? Zoom in." Marcus took a swig of his beer and shrugged. "She's nuts, but I'm not sitting here babysitting the stove." Reluctantly, they followed, Jake muttering under his breath about dumbass wild goose chases. The drone buzzed along overhead, its hum blending with the faint whistle of wind through the scrub brush. They trudged maybe 50 yards when Tara yelped, stumbling over something half buried in the sand. A rusted canteen, dented and scratched, rolled into view. Jake crouched, picking it up with a frown. "JR" was etched into the metal, his initials plain as day. He let out a dry laugh, tossing it to Marcus. "What, I'm famous out here now." But his hands shook as he stood, just for a second, and he shoved them into his pockets quick. The wind picked up then, a low moan rolling across the dunes, carrying a sound like a scream that got snipped off mid-breath. Marcus froze mid-sip, beerkin hovering near his lips. "You guys hear that?" he asked, voice quieter than usual. Sam nodded, glancing back at the Jeep, but Lila just pointed ahead. "It's them. Look." The figures were still there, shadowy against the sunset, and Tara tilted the drone for a better angle. The feed glitched again, hard this time, and when it cleared, the chat went silent. Those figures weren't just standing there anymore. One held a knife, glinting in the dying light. Jake's knife, the one he'd left on the Jeep's tailgate. Another gripped a flashlight, its beam cutting through the haze. Lila's, the one she dropped when she started walking. Tara's voice cracked. "Guys, that's our stuff." Before anyone could answer, the drone's buzz turned into a whine, then a sputter. It dropped like a stone, slamming into the sand 20 feet away with a dull crunch. Tara bolted for it, swearing under her breath, while Jake barked, "Leave it, we're not chasing ghosts." She ignored him, kneeling to scoop up the wreckage. Her phone screen was still lit, frozen on the last frame, those 5 figures, staring straight into the camera, holding their gear like it was theirs all along. "This isn't funny," she muttered, shoving the busted drone into her bag. Jake snorted, kicking at the sand. "Told you, mirage. Tech craps out all the time out here." But his jaw was tight, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as they trudged back to camp. The desert felt different now, heavier somehow, like the air was pressing down on them. The sky had gone from orange to a bruised purple, stars just starting to prick through, and the silence wasn't so silent anymore. A faint hum lingered, threading through the wind. Sam lagged behind, helping Tara with her gear, while Lila walked ahead, muttering about proof and something big. Marcus cracked another beer, but his usual grin was gone. Jake stayed quiet, kicking rocks as he went, his boots scuffing the ground with every step. By the time they reached the Jeep, night was creeping in fast, shadows stretching long and thin across the sand. The fire pit was still unlit, the gear scattered where they'd left it, but something felt off, like the desert was watching them settle in, waiting for its next move. The camp was coming together now, the Jeep's shadow stretching long across the sand as the last of the daylight bled away. Sam climbed out from behind the wheel, his lanky frame hauling Lila's tent bag with a quiet grunt. At 29, he was the guy you could count on to keep the peace. Always a soft word or a quick nod to smooth over Jake's grumbling or Marcus's loudmouth antics. He flashed that shy smile of his, the one that crinkled the corners of his eyes, as he dropped the bag near the fire pit. "Better get this up before it's pitch black," he said, mostly to himself, but his gaze drifted to Lila. She was already pacing a few yards off, flipping through one of her conspiracy books, her voice cutting through the stillness. "You know, they've been testing weird stuff out here since the 50s. UFOs, energy fields, all of it. Bet we're standing on some kind of hot spot right now." Sam didn't answer, just unrolled the tent with careful hands, stealing glances at her wild curls catching the firelight. That secret thing he felt for her, it was there in the way he lingered, the way his fingers fumbled a tent peg for no reason. Tara was nearby, crouched over her busted drone, her 26-year-old nerves showing in the way her hands shook. She was the techie of the group, small and wiry, always wired into her phone. Those 500 followers were her world, her tether to something bigger than this empty desert. "Come on, you piece of junk," she muttered, twisting a screwdriver into the drone's cracked casing. The fire was going now, thanks to Marcus, who'd piled up some dry scrub and lit it with a flourish. The crackle pop of the flames mixed with the faint hum still riding the wind, and the smell of smoke started curling through the air. Jake stomped over with an armful of firewood, bits of twisted Joshua tree branches, and dumped them near the pit. "Let's not freeze out here," he said, his voice gruff, but he kept his back to the dunes, like he didn't want to look out there again. Sam hammered the last stake into the sand, wiping sweat off his brow with his sleeve. "Tents up," he called, brushing his hands on his jeans as he stood. Lila tossed her book onto a cooler and grinned at him. "My hero," she said, half teasing, and Sam's ears went red even in the dim light. Tara got the drone's motor whirring again, just a weak sputter, but enough to make her sigh in relief. "Good enough for now," she said, standing up and dusting off her knees. The group settled around the fire, the orange glow flickering over their faces. Marcus sprawled out on a camping chair, cracking another beer, while Jake stayed on his feet, pacing a slow circle around the camp, his boots crunching the sand. Lila plopped down cross-legged, pulling a bag of chips from her backpack, the crinkle of the foil loud in the quiet. It was maybe an hour later, as dusk settled thick and heavy, when Sam's head snapped up. He'd been poking at the fire with a stick, sending sparks swirling into the dark, when he froze. "Guys," he said, voice low, pointing toward a ridge maybe 100 yards off. The group turned, squinting into the gloom. There they were again, those 5 figures, standing silent and unblinking against the horizon. Same clothes, same shapes, just wrong. Sam squinted harder, his stick dropping into the fire with a soft hiss. "Mine's smiling," he said, barely above a whisper. "Like, smirking at me, slow and messed up." Tara fumbled for her phone, hands trembling as she pulled up the stream. The drone was too wrecked to fly, but she'd rigged it to record from the ground. The feed stuttered, their own laughter from earlier looping over static. "Ha ha ha!" Then a voice cut through, faint and raspy. "Look closer." The screen blinked, and the figures were gone. Jake was on his feet in a second, grabbing his flashlight from the Jeep's tailgate. "Screw this," he growled, flicking it on and charging toward the ridge, the beam bouncing wild across the sand. "Jake, wait!" Lila shouted, scrambling after him, but he didn't slow down. The rest followed, half running, half stumbling, the fire shrinking behind them. By the time they reached the spot, panting and swearing, there was nothing, just empty dunes stretching out under a sky full of stars. Jake swept the light around, his breathing rough. "Told you, mirage," he said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. They trudged back, the wind picking up again, carrying that faint hum that made the hairs on Sam's neck stand up. Morning came slow, the sun creeping over the horizon like it wasn't sure it wanted to be there. Tara was up first, poking at her phone, when she gasped. "Guys, look at this." Barefoot prints circled the camp, dozens of them, weaving between the tents and the Jeep. Too fresh, too perfect, like someone had walked all night without making a sound. Marcus rubbed sleep from his eyes and whistled. "That's some creepy-ass art project." Jake crouched by the tracks, his jaw tight. "No one's been out here but us," he said, but his voice had a crack in it. Lila was already digging through her tent, tossing out blankets and books when she stopped cold. Under her pillow was a Polaroid, old, yellowed, showing the 5 of them smiling around a fire just like last night, except their eyes were scratched out, jagged black lines tearing through the photo. "Who did this?" she demanded, holding it up, her voice sharp. Sam shook his head, stepping back. "Not me." Tara's hands shook as she filmed it, muttering, "Chat's gonna lose it." Marcus just stared, his beer forgotten. No one owned up. Later that day, as the sun climbed higher, Jake was messing with his flashlight, flicking it on and off to check the battery. He was sitting on a cooler, the metal creaking under his weight, when the beam caught something, a shadow on the sand, moving just behind him. He froze, then swung the light around slow. There it was, his double, standing maybe 10 feet off, holding an identical flashlight, mirroring his every move. The figure's face was blank, but its stance was Jake's, down to the way he tilted his head. "What the?" Jake spun, boots kicking up sand, but it was gone. The wind howled then, loud and sudden, and he swore he heard them, his squad from back in the day, their screams ripping through the air like they were dying all over again. He dropped the flashlight, hands clenched into fists, his breath coming fast. "You hear that?" he rasped, looking at Sam, who'd gone pale. "Hear what?" Sam asked, but his voice was shaky, like he didn't want the answer. The camp felt smaller now, the desert pressing in from all sides. Tara kept filming, her phone propped on a rock, the stream stuttering every few minutes. Lila sat by the fire, flipping through her book again, muttering about energy anomalies and classified tests, but her usual spark was dimmer. Marcus cracked a weak joke. "Guess we're the VIPs of nowhere," but it fell flat, swallowed by the crackle of the flames. Sam stayed close to Lila, poking at the fire again, the stick trembling in his grip. Jake paced the perimeter, his flashlight back in hand, sweeping the dunes like he was waiting for something to step out of the dark. And out there, beyond the firelight, that hum kept going, low and steady, like the desert itself was breathing. The fire was still snapping away, throwing little bursts of light across the camp, when Marcus plopped down on a folding chair with a fresh beer in hand. At 30, he was the loud one, the guy who'd laugh in the face of anything. Fear didn't stick to him, or so he wanted you to think. The hiss-pop of the can echoed as he cracked it open, foam dribbling over his knuckles. "To surviving night one," he said, raising it with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. He fished a marshmallow out of the bag by his feet, skewering it on a stick he'd whittled earlier with his pocket knife. The flames licked at it, turning it golden, then black, the sweet, burnt smell mixing with the dry desert air. Sam was across from him, still poking at the logs with that same stick, his shoulders hunched like he couldn't shake what they'd seen. Tara sat cross-legged on a blanket, her phone propped up on a rock, the stream running even though the signal kept dipping. Her shaky fingers tapped the screen, keeping it alive for those 500 followers. Marcus was mid-roast, twirling the marshmallow slow, when Sam's head jerked up again. "There," he said, voice tight, pointing out past the fire's glow. The group turned, eyes straining against the dark. The doubles were back, closer this time, maybe 70 yards off, standing in that same eerie line. No movement, just hollow stares cutting through the night. Marcus lowered his stick, the marshmallow sizzling as it hit the embers. "Well, shit," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "Guess our fan club's back." Tara's hands fumbled her phone, nearly dropping it as she zoomed in, the stream flickering. "They're not doing anything," she whispered, but her voice cracked like she didn't believe it. Jake, who'd been leaning against the Jeep, straightened up, his flashlight clicking on with a sharp snap. "They're watching," he muttered, sweeping the beam across the dunes. The light didn't reach them, but you could feel it. Those eyes, locked on every move. The night stretched on, the fire popping and hissing as the wind tugged at the flames. Marcus tried to keep it light, cracking dumb jokes. "Maybe they're just jealous of my roasting skills," but his voice was thinner now, the bravado wearing out. Sam kept glancing out there, his stick abandoned in the dirt, while Lila sat with her knees pulled up, scribbling notes in her book by the firelight. Tara's stream chat was a mess. "What's with the creepy twins? Get closer." But she just shook her head, muttering, "No way in hell." Jake paced again, his boots scuffing a rhythm into the sand, the flashlight beam darting like he was waiting for a fight. The hum was louder now, a steady drone that buzzed in your teeth, and it wasn't just the wind anymore. Morning hit like a slap, the sun clawing its way up, pale and weak. Marcus woke first, groaning as he rolled over in his sleeping bag. "Man, my back's killing me," he mumbled, sitting up, then stopped. His sleeping bag was slashed, long, jagged cuts running down the side, sand pouring out like it was bleeding. He scrambled to his feet, kicking at it. "What the hell? This was fine last night." Sam stumbled over, rubbing his eyes, and froze when he saw it. "That's not funny, Marcus," he said, but Marcus just held up his hands. "Dude, I didn't do this. Swear." Tara was already filming, her phone shaking as she panned across the mess. Lila poked her head out of her tent, curls a wild tangle. "Something's messing with us," she said, voice low, almost excited. Sam grabbed his water bottle from beside his sleeping bag, unscrewed the cap, and took a swig, then spat it out, gagging. "Tastes like rust and salt," he said, wiping his mouth with his sleeve. "This was empty last night. I know it was." The group huddled by the fire pit, the embers still smoldering, when Lila went quiet. She tilted her head, listening. "You hear that?" she asked, her eyes wide. No one did at first. Then it came, faint and soft, drifting out of the dark beyond the camp. Lily, her childhood nickname, the one her mom used to call her, whispered in a voice that wasn't theirs. She stood up fast, her book tumbling into the sand. "That's not you guys, right?" she asked, looking from face to face. Sam shook his head, his jaw tight. "Not me." Marcus tried to laugh. "Maybe it's the wind, Lily," but it died quick when she glared at him. The whisper came again, Lily, curling through the air like smoke, and she took a step toward it before Sam grabbed her arm. "Don't," he said, sharper than he meant to. Jake was off by the Jeep, checking the gear when he stopped cold. Boot prints, his boot prints, the same scuffed tread, stretched out from the camp, leading away into the dunes. He crouched, running a hand over them, his breath hitching. "These weren't here," he said, loud enough for the others to hear. He stood, following them a few steps, then stopped as the wind kicked up hard. Voices hit him, his squad, the ones he'd lost overseas, screaming his name, blaming him. "You left us, Jake. You ran." He staggered back, hands over his ears, his stoicism cracking like dry wood. Lila jogged over, peering at the tracks. "It's a sign," she said, her voice buzzing again. "They're trying to tell us something." Sam snapped then, rounding on her. "A sign? You're dragging us into this for what? Clout? Some stupid theory?" His calm was gone, that hidden love twisting into something raw and angry. She flinched, but fired back. "You don't get it, Sam. This is real." The air between them crackled, thicker than the fire. By afternoon, the doubles were back, 50 yards off now, close enough to see details. They stood in a ragged line, mimicking everything. Marcus pacing with his beer, Lila flipping her book pages, Sam kicking at the sand. Tara got the drone up, shaky but working, its buzz cutting through the hum. "Look at this," she said, zooming in on her phone. The stream showed it clear, their mouths moving, silent but perfect, syncing with every word the group said. "They're copying us," she whispered, her voice trembling. The drone dipped closer and the feed caught their eyes, pitch black, like holes punched into their faces, reflecting nothing, not even the sunlight. Tara dropped the phone, scooting back on her blanket. "That's not right," she said, over and over, while Marcus stared out at them, his marshmallow stick limp in his hand. "They're not laughing," he muttered, and for once he didn't try to. The camp was a cage now, the desert locking them in tight. Jake kept his flashlight close, sweeping it over the dunes every few minutes, his hands steady but his eyes wild. Sam stayed near Lila, silent now, the fight hanging heavy between them. Tara's stream kept rolling, the chat a blur of run and what is that, but she couldn't look away. Marcus sat by the fire, staring into the flames, his beer untouched. And out there, 50 yards off, the doubles watched, unblinking, unmoving, waiting for whatever came next. Night fell hard, swallowing the stars until the sky was just a black void pressing down on the camp. The fire was down to a dull glow, spitting out the occasional spark, but it wasn't enough to push back the dark anymore. Tara was hunched over her phone, the drone feed flickering on the screen, shaky, grainy, but working again after her frantic repairs. She'd propped it up on a rock, its little red light blinking like a heartbeat. "Guys, look at this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The feed showed a camp, their camp, down to the tents, the jeep, the smoldering fire pit, but it was wrong. It sat inside Area 51's fence line, maybe a mile off, the barbed wire glinting in the drone's night vision. The angles were off, warped, like someone had built a mirror image and twisted it just enough to make your stomach turn. The doubles were there, moving slow and deliberate, cooking, sitting, pacing, everything the group had done, but in that eerie, too-perfect way. Marcus was on his feet before anyone could stop him, his beer can hitting the sand with a dull thud. "Screw this," he snapped, his voice hoarse, all that jokester shine gone. He grabbed a flashlight from the gear pile, the beam jittering as he bolted into the dunes. "Marcus, wait!" Sam yelled, but he was already gone, swallowed by the dark. The group stood frozen, the wind tugging at their clothes, that hum pulsing louder now, like it was coming from the ground itself. Minutes dragged by, 5, maybe 10, before Marcus stumbled back, his face pale, sweat streaking down his cheeks. He tripped over a tent peg, catching himself on the jeep's hood, his chest heaving. "I saw me," he rasped, his eyes wide and glassy. "Out there, running the other way. Looked right at me, begging me to stop. Same damn shirt, same everything." He sank to his knees, hands digging into the sand. "What the hell is this?" Tara's phone buzzed, the stream cutting out with a sharp crackle. Then it rebooted, the feed jumping back to life. There they were again, the doubles, mimicking every move from earlier. Lila flipping her book, Jake pacing, Sam kicking at the dirt. But now it was live, real time, their silent mouths moving with every word the group had said around the fire. Lila stood up, her curls whipping in the wind. "We need to go see them," she said, her voice sharp with that reckless edge. "This is it, proof of something bigger." Sam grabbed her arm, harder than before. "Are you nuts? We don't know what they are." Jake spun around, his flashlight beam slicing through the dark. "We're leaving," he barked, his voice raw like it'd been scraped out of him. "Pack it up, now." Tara didn't move, her eyes locked on the screen. Her stream chat was a wall of run, 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 the words piling up so fast they blurred. "I can't," she whispered. her hands trembling so bad the phone slipped, clattering onto the blanket. I can't move. The sand shifted under their feet then, a soft hiss like it was alive, names in a low, jagged murmur. Jake, Lila, Sam, faint but clear. Lila snatched her flashlight from her tent, flicking it on, the beam cutting through the night. It flickered once, twice, then started pulsing, short, long, short, like Morse code. She squinted at it, her breath catching. "It's saying, 'Come back,'" she said, her voice trembling but excited. "They want us to go to them." Jake stepped closer, his own flashlight gripped tight when his shadow stretched across the sand, too long, too sharp. He froze, watching it move, and there it was again, his double, just at the edge of the beam, holding the same light, mirroring him perfectly. "Get out of my head," Jake muttered, spinning fast, but it was gone, the wind howling in its place, carrying those screams from his past louder than ever. Sam stayed close to Lila, his hands balled into fists, his calm unraveling thread by thread. "You're gonna get us killed," he said, low and shaky, his eyes locked on her. She pulled away, glaring. "You don't have to follow me, Sam." But he did, trailing her as she paced near the Jeep, muttering about energy fields and government cover-ups. Marcus was still by the hood, his head in his hands, sobs breaking through the silence. Not loud, just raw, like he couldn't hold it in anymore. "I'm done," he mumbled, over and over, rocking back and forth. Tara finally scooped up her phone, the stream still rolling, but she clutched it to her chest like a shield, her breathing shallow and fast. Jake kicked at the sand, swearing under his breath, his flashlight beam darting from dune to dune. "We're not staying," he said again, louder, but no one moved. They were stuck, pinned in place. The desert tightened around them, the air thick and heavy, like it was pressing them into the ground. That hum was everywhere now, vibrating through their boots, their bones. Lila's flashlight flickered again, the Morse code pulsing faster. "Come back! Come back!" And she took a step toward the dunes, her boots crunching loud in the quiet. Sam lunged after her, grabbing her wrist. "Stop it, Lila, please," he begged, his voice cracking. She yanked free, her eyes wild. "You don't get it. This is what we came for." Jake stormed over, shoving past Sam. "We didn't come for this. We're getting out before it's too late." Tara's phone buzzed hard, the stream glitching, and she whimpered, "They're still there, watching." Marcus lifted his head, his face streaked with dirt and tears, and pointed a shaky finger. "Look." Out there, past the camp's edge, the doubles stood, closer now, maybe 30 yards off, their warped camp glowing faintly behind them. They didn't move, didn't blink, just stared with those black hole eyes, waiting. The sand whispered again, sharper this time, Marcus, Tara, and the group huddled tighter, the Jeep's shadow their only cover. The night was a trap, snapping shut, and whatever was coming next, they weren't ready for it. Midnight hit like a hammer, the air going still for a split second before everything exploded. The doubles came out of the dark, silent, relentless, moving like shadows with purpose. They were on the camp in seconds, wielding Jake's knife, its blade glinting dull in the firelight, Lila's flashlight, its beam slicing through the night, Tara's tripod, the metal legs swinging like a club. Their faces stayed blank, no anger, no nothing, just empty masks. But their strikes were vicious, precise, like they'd been practicing for this. Jake was the first to react, lunging for his pack where he'd stashed a spare knife, his boots skidding in the sand. "Get back!" he roared, his voice cracking raw as he swung at the closest one, his own double, coming straight for him with that stolen blade. Sam was by the fire, shoving Lila behind him as her double stepped forward, flashlight raised like a baton. "Stay down," he yelled, his calm gone, replaced by something wild. The double swung, and Sam tackled it, slamming into the sand with a heavy thud. They rolled, a tangle of limbs, until a flash of steel caught the firelight. Jake's knife buried in Sam's gut. He gasped, a wet, choking sound, clutching at the wound as blood soaked his shirt. His double didn't hesitate, knelt right beside him, mirroring his slump, his gasps, those hollow black eyes staring down like a twisted reflection. "Sam!" Lila screamed, dropping to her knees, her hands shaking as she pressed them over his, trying to stop the bleeding. "Hold on, please, hold on." She begged, her voice breaking, tears streaking through the dust on her face. Jake was still fighting, his knife slashing through the air as his double parried with eerie precision. He caught it across the arm, a clean cut, and sand poured out instead of blood, spilling onto the ground in a dry hiss. "What the hell are you?" he snarled, staggering back, his chest heaving. The thing didn't flinch, just kept coming, silent and steady. Tara was a few yards off, filming it all, her phone shaking in her grip as she screamed, "Somebody help him!" Her double was on her then, tripod swinging down hard. She ducked barely, but it caught the drone propped on the rock, crunch, smashing it to pieces, the red light blinking out. The stream died, her phone screen going black, and she dropped it, scrambling back with a sob. "No, no, no," she whimpered, hands clawing at the sand as her double loomed over her, tripod raised again. The air thickened, heavy with a metallic tang, like blood and rust mixed together, stinging their noses as they fought. The sand started whispering again, louder now, Sam's name curling through the wind. "Sam, Sam." Then voices Jake knew too well, his squad from years back, shouting, "You let us die!" He swung wild, his knife slicing air, his eyes darting as the screams clawed at him. Marcus was in the mix, wrestling his own double near the jeep, his flashlight beam bouncing crazy across the dunes. "Get off me," he yelled, shoving it back. Then he was gone. Just vanished mid-step, the flashlight clattering to the ground, rolling to a stop. His laughter echoed out of nowhere, loud and jagged, bouncing off the dunes like it was trapped in the air. "Marcus!" Tara shrieked, spinning around, but there was nothing, just that laugh, fading slow. Jake grabbed Lila's arm, yanking her up from Sam's side. "We're going, now!" he barked, his voice rough as gravel. Sam was still breathing, shallow and ragged, but he waved them off, blood bubbling on his lips. "Go," he rasped, his hand falling limp. Lila sobbed, "No, Sam, no." But Jake dragged her toward the jeep, Tara stumbling behind them, her hands empty now, phone lost in the chaos. The doubles didn't chase, not yet, just stood there watching, their blank faces glowing faint in the dark. The jeep was ahead, a hulking shape in the night, and Jake shoved the door open, the hinges squealing loud. But it wasn't right. The paint was rusted through, flaking off in chunks, the tires flat and cracked, like it had been sitting there for decades. "What the?" Jake muttered, kicking the frame, the metal groaning under his boot. Lila climbed anyway, frantic, and something fluttered from the dash, a child's drawing, creased and faded, tumbling into her lap. She unfolded it with trembling hands, stick figures of them, Jake, Lila, Tara, Sam, Marcus, labeled 1995 in sloppy crayon, holding hands with faceless shadows. This is us," she whispered, her voice shaking as she held it up. Tara leaned over, her breath hitching. "That's impossible." Jake slammed the door shut, swearing loud, "Doesn't matter, we're not staying." The keys were gone, the engine dead, and behind them, the double's footsteps started up. Thud, 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 slow but closing in. "Run!" he shouted, pulling Lila out, Tara scrambling after. They bolted, legs pumping through the sand, the cold biting at their lungs, those footsteps pounding louder, relentless. They ran blind, the desert a blur of dunes and shadows, until dawn cracked the horizon, a thin gray line lighting up a gas station ahead. It was old, weathered, the pumps rusted and leaning, but it was real. They stumbled toward it, gasping, blood and sand caked on their clothes, the double's steps fading behind them as the sun crept higher. Jake shoved the door open, the bell jingling sharp above them, and they collapsed inside, the cool tile a shock against their skin. The fight was over, for now, but the desert wasn't done with them yet. The gas station door slammed shut behind them, the little bell jangling harsh in the quiet, cutting through their ragged gasps. Jake, Lila, and Tara staggered inside, blood and sand crusted on their clothes, their boots leaving smears on the cracked tile floor. The air was stale, thick with the smell of old coffee and motor oil, a faint buzz humming from the fluorescent lights overhead. They collapsed against the counter, chests heaving, hands shaking, alive but barely. Behind the register stood an old man, his skin leathery and wrinkled, his eyes milky white like he hadn't seen daylight in years. He didn't flinch at their state, just slid a Polaroid across the counter with a slow, deliberate push, the edges curling from age. Jake snatched it up, his fingers leaving red streaks on the glossy surface. It was them, 5 of them, smiling around a campfire, decked out in baggy 90s flannel, the date 10/15/95 scrawled in faded ink on the bottom. "What is this?" he rasped, his voice rough from shouting, holding it out like it burned. Lila leaned in, her breath catching as she traced the faces, herself, Sam, Tara, Marcus, younger but unmistakable. "That's us," she whispered, her curls falling into her eyes. Tara, slumped against a rack of stale chips, peeked over, her hands still trembling. No way, that's not possible. The old man tapped the counter with a bony finger, his voice a dry rasp. Found it out back years ago. Jake's head snapped up, and that's when he saw them, missing posters plastered along the wall behind the register, yellowed and curling at the edges. Their faces stared back. Missing, since October 15th, 1995, Jake's buzz cut, Lila's wild hair, Sam's shy smile, all frozen in time, faded but clear. Presumed dead, one read. The words smudged like someone had handled it too much. What the hell is this place? Jake demanded, slamming the Polaroid down, his voice echoing off the grimy walls. Before the old man could answer, Tara's phone buzzed, hard, insistent, vibrating against the tile where she'd dropped it in the chaos. It'd been dead since the drone smashed, battery drained, but now the screen flickered to life, the stream kicking back on with a glitchy beep. No, she muttered, scooping it up, her fingers fumbling. The feed showed her double, standing out in the dunes, staring straight into the camera, those pitch-black eyes locked on her. A whisper crackled through the speaker, soft and cold. We've been waiting. Tara yelped, dropping the phone again, and it skidded across the floor, the double's face still filling the screen. The old man chuckled, a low, wheezing sound, and leaned forward. You're late, he said, his milky eyes glinting as he nodded toward the window. Outside, the dunes shimmered in the early light, the doubles standing still, watching. From an ancient radio on the counter, Nirvana's Come As You Are droned out, warped and slow, the notes stretching like they were underwater. Come as you are, as you were, a sick, looping lullaby. Jake stumbled back, brushing his sleeves, and sand trickled out, fine and dry, spilling onto the floor in little piles. What the? He muttered, shaking his arms harder, but it kept coming, a steady stream like he was unraveling. Lila turned toward the glass door, her breath fogging the pain, when a voice cut through, her voice clear as day, calling Lily from outside. She spun around, eyes darting. That's me, she said, her voice trembling. The payphone out front was unplugged, its cord dangling loose, but it rang anyway, a sharp, tinny burring, and her voice echoed again. Lily, come back. Tara grabbed her arm, pulling her away. Don't listen, she hissed, her nails digging in. Jake stormed to the bathroom in the back, splashing water on his face from a rusty sink when he caught the mirror. His double stared back, younger, smiling, frozen in that 90s flannel, unblinking. He punched the glass, shattering it with a loud crack, blood dripping from his knuckles, but the reflection didn't move. The old man shuffled to the door, his boots scuffing the tile, and flipped the lock with a heavy click. No point running, he rasped, peering out as sand started piling against the glass, slow but steady, like the desert was swallowing the place whole. Tara's phone pinged again, the stream chat popping up. Lost campers, day 10,958, and the feed shifted, showing them now. Jake, Lila, Tara, walking into the dunes, joining the doubles, their steps slow and mechanical. That's not us, Lila said, her voice rising, but it was, right there, live, their faces blank as they merged with the shadows. Jake grabbed a chair, heaving it at the window, the glass cracking but not breaking, sand pouring in faster through the gaps. We're getting out, he shouted, but his words felt hollow, swallowed by that warped Nirvana tune still droning from the radio. It hit them then, piece by piece, the truth, cold and sharp. They'd crossed something out there, a time slip near Area 51, a pocket where October 15, 1995, looped endless and cruel. Nevada folks whispered about it sometimes, a freak storm that night, tied to some classified energy surge, swallowing 5 campers whole, their bodies sinking beneath the sand, their souls trapped in the echo. These 2025 versions, the ones who'd laughed in the Jeep, set up camp, fought to survive, weren't real, not anymore. They were ghosts, echoes drawn back to merge with their lost selves, the posters on the wall screaming it, missing since 95, presumed dead. Tara's stream kept rolling, the counter ticking up, day 10,959, as the dunes outside shimmered, the doubles waiting, patient and still. Lila sank to the floor, her hands clutching the Polaroid, whispering, "We never left." Jake pounded the door, his fists bloody, yelling, "Let us out!" But the old man just hummed along to the radio, stuck in the loop too, his milky eyes fixed on nothing. The sand piled higher, sealing the windows, the hum growing louder until it was all they could hear. The last thing Tara's stream caught was them. Walking out, joining the dunes, the cashier locking the door behind them, the glass buried in sand. The feed cut, but out there, the loop rolled on, endless and quiet, waiting for the next echo to stumble in. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more creepy stories. Stay safe, and see you in the next nightmare.